welcome to the KASS Review, Episode 1. That's right, it's the Kat and Sara Show review.
Wait, did you think that we meant something else? Did you think that we meant the bombshell, now debunked, gigantic review of further debunked studies released in the United Kingdom?
Oh my God.
So silly.
Kat, I didn't even put together that the name of our podcast, the KASS Review with a K, would sound like that largely debunked hit piece by the Dr. Cass in the UK, who published her own KASS review as an attack on trans youth.
Wow. Well, it's already been 30 seconds, so I think we just have to stick with it.
We just got to roll forward. So yeah, welcome to the KASS Review. Every week, loosely, my friend Kat and I will be reviewing the fucked up fucking shit that's been going on.
You got it. And sometimes some stuff that's not so fucked up after all.
And maybe sometimes stuff that didn't really happen in that past week. It could be older.
Yeah. Or maybe sometimes stuff that didn't really happen at all, but that we wish happened.
Or that
are
we're
glad that
afraid
didn't
will happen.
Yeah. Nothing's off the table.
Yeah. And I do want to say, this is episode 1, so y'all don't know what you're getting into. This isn't going to be a news show. Neither of us are journalists. The access to like breaking the news that we have is the same that you have. We're reading the same news that you are, potentially, if you're following it. But this is, yeah.
Don't come to us first. We are not, the only thing that we're breaking is our own souls by further engaging with horrendous shit.
Yeah, this is not a news podcast. This is a podcast where 2 trans women, both of whom went to law school, one of whom finished law school, can talk together to process the news and think about just what the fuck is going on, living through the collapse, living through the fascist coup, the takeover, and what we're all supposed to do about that and think about that.
Yeah. If anything, I mean, I'd like for us to be able to do or think something that's not fascist. But, there's a lot of painful things that are happening, and this is a good space for us, the 2 of us, to process this, and then maybe say, hey, maybe other people will be able to process through our processing, and we can all be in a big old process circle together.
Oh, that would be great. Like a big cuddle puddle, but we're all cowering.
Exactly. Isn't cuddle puddle have an element of cowering deep down?
I don't think so. I think...
Oh.
But
I think
maybe.
I've been part of very different cuddle puddles than you.
Yeah, maybe. So, anyway, who are we? I'm Sara. I'm Sara Rose Caplan on Instagram. I'm a trans woman. I'm 32. I dropped out of Berkeley Law, which is where I met Kat. And now I'm a performer, comedian, and soon-to-be philosophy grad student at Cal State LA, where I do a lot of, I specifically we'll be focusing on the philosophy of gender, of transness, queerness, and like combined with what I want to focus on, the philosophy of propaganda and fascism, and all the really fun intersections of those 2 sides of the shit.
I love a multi-sided shit. Thank you, Sara, for enlightening us in your background. I can't wait to witness you go through grad school and see how that plays out in your psyche and heart.
Yeah, we'll see if I don't drop out this time.
If you do, I'll be more proud of you than if you graduate. Hi, I'm Kat. I went to law school and did not drop out. Whether that was a good choice or not is it for you to decide. But regardless, I am out here being a lawyer. I live in southern New Mexico, which is where I grew up, and I am a practicing public defender. This is not a reflection of my work. It is only me in a personal capacity. Beep boop.
The Kat and Sara Show officially speaks for all the political positions of the state of New Mexico.
No. That was a joke. But yes, I am a practicing lawyer. I can talk about law things generally, and I probably will because I had to shove all that into my brain, and now I'll be shoving it into your brain. And if you don't like it, then get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. What are you doing listening to this show?
Yeah, that's very silly.
It's so many other podcasts out. Go listen to Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
I mean,
don't do that.
well, don't do
listen
that.
to Joe Rogan.
Go listen to like Aaron in the morning, or maybe like
go listen to like Even More News. That's a good pod.
Oh, yeah,
Or
yeah.
actually, you should go listen to It Could Happen Here. That's what I recommend.
Oh, I haven't listened. That one's pretty. I've heard of it, but I haven't like seen it with my
that
own
one's
two
good.
ears.
That one's
okay. Good.
That one's good.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. A lot of the takes in news, in knowledge that I have, I'm going to be stealing from them. But
I love theft.
Yeah, we're all just look. Why are we doing this pod?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of said it. We're here to process the news and give another perspective on the news. There's if any cisgender heterosexual I can't even say it.
Heterosexuals. Wow. That's
where you go if you're on Glee.
Two different sectional puns.
Wow, at once. That was really impressive. I'm really proud of us for that one. But if shit. Good shit. That's one of the other sides of the shit that we were talking about. Yeah. But we're here. Any cisgender heterosexual man can start a podcast, but can two trans feminine people who are both mostly white but a little bit Jewish start a podcast? How many of those are there?
Also a lot, but look,
shit.
I'm just here to process the shit that's going on with my smart lawyer friend Kat, and if it helps you all to listen to it, then I'm glad. And if I can help spread some of the more radical ideas I get from the shit I listen to a more broad audience who, for whatever reason, might want to listen to us, that's great. I'm happy to play my part in the propaganda machine.
You know what? The best way to combat propaganda is more propaganda.
Yeah, you're right. I guess I think of it as propaganda these days because, like, the mainstream stuff has just given up on caring about truth.
It really has. And I've always kind of been the type of person philosophically that's like, what is truth? Anything could be an opinion if you dig deep enough. But now that idea is really being challenged when we're faced with like legitimate like lies and things that are even less truths than they could be.
Yeah, anything someone tells you is at best a very strongly held belief. There's no certainty. But at least in the past, it felt like more people than now were sharing their genuinely held very strong beliefs instead of just lying to you.
Or just saying stuff that's just word vomiting. It's very... It's sad.
If someone says something they believe about the world and they're wrong, but they're just like, they're doing their best, it's harder to blame them than if they're just actually talking out of their ass or straight up lying.
And which one's worse? That's a whole episode topic.
That is. But we can promise on this pod, we will be sharing our genuinely held beliefs, fully aware that they might be wrong, but we will at least be doing our best. Heck
yeah. Oh, and that brings me back to my social is at she's doing her best, okay. No AY at the end of okay, unfortunately. I hit the character limit.
She's doing her best doc on Instagram.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I'll be tagged, I'm sure, somewhere. Somehow.
That's enough intro. You get it. You get the sense. This is our episode 0 and our episode 1.
Wow.
So, Kat, what are we talking about this week?
So this week we had the distinct pleasure of witnessing the big, beautiful bill pass the House, pass the Senate, pass the House again, and then I'm not sure if it actually got signed by Trump yet, and I don't want to know. I know it probably will be anyway.
It did, on July 4th.
Of course it did. That's really awesome.
With 2 B-2 bombers flying overhead, I think, was the imagery.
Oh, is that what the B's stood for?
Well, apparently July 4th was a hard deadline that the Trump administration gave the Republicans in the Senate and Congress. and
Mm,
they took it very seriously. Like Trump wanted to sign this bill on July 4th for the pageantry and symbolism.
of course.
And
We love
so
symbolism in
that's
this
why they
country.
didn't like once it got back to Congress to the House, they could have fought harder to like re-add like Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to re-add the trans stuff, but that would have had to go back to the Senate and it like
Mm,
would have probably been possible, but it would have taken longer. And all the Republicans are like,
mm.
no, if we don't get it to him by July 4th, he's gonna be big mad.
That's the only real deadline about this deadline. It's
Yeah.
not this bill can't pass. It's not that like the law will expire. It's just that he'll be madder than usual.
They had until the end of the year to do this budget. Like that's
They really did. I mean, we've heard about government shutdowns happening all the time because they do wait till the end of the year.
yeah.
But Daddy Trump said no, and all his little simps said yes.
Yeah. So, do you want to give us a brief rundown on the one big beautiful bill? I should also put this
Yeah.
out there, audience. We're not because we are not trying to be your source of news. We're assuming that if you're listening to this, you're probably generally interested in the news and following it,
Hmm.
and you probably have a good sense of what this is, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna I'll give a general overview, but I'm not gonna go into like specific details about what it funds and defunds, other than a couple like really big points, because again, you could be looking that up, and I just simply cannot stare at a screen that says BBB anymore, without at least trying to make a Brazilian butt lift joke. So
Catalina's a public defender. She does not have time to be putting together research docs for a podcast. We're doing this for free.
uh,
It's
and even if I did have the time, I simply don't want to. That's Aaron in the morning. I'm so happy for you to take that lane for us.
well, that's why Erin has people working for her.
Exactly, and that's why I'm in my bedroom. Um, so, big beautiful bill. If you could not tell from earlier, that was extreme sarcasm, and if you couldn't, wow, I'm a really good actor. But the big beautiful bill is coined that for some reason, but it is the annual budget that the entire government has to pass to fund itself. It is typically done every year. It's also often done at the end of the year, as I mentioned, and that's why we often have government shutdowns whenever we do around the holidays, big air quotes, around Christmas and New Year's, Gregorian New Year's. But they passed it this year because of the July 4th of it all. This is the 249th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence being signed, which is cute, I guess. But it who cares? Well, I don't know. Some of you
I
might
mean,
care. We can talk about that later.
Trump cared about the symbolism of July 4th. Like
He did.
uh, the Trump administration cared that like ICE had rapidly depleted all of its funding, and so they needed this new like
Yeah,
budget passed.
that's
Not that
true.
it will technically take into effect yet, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so some just headlines that highlights and headlines that you may have seen is this bill drastically reduces Medicaid funding. If you don't know what Medicaid is, it is a way that healthcare is funded for people who are the lowest earners in our country. Someone could be a quote unquote low earner for a lot of reasons, sometimes due to disability and health issues, sometimes due to the fact that we have a forced unemployment rate in our country. And if an unemployment gets too low, then the powers that be get big mad. Among a host of other reasons. A lot of people in school are in Medicaid. That is being majorly defunded. So Medicaid is largely funded by the federal government, and then the states sometimes put in extra money, and Medicaid is administered by the states. Can you tell I used to practice Medicaid law? I'm like really starting to go into my little info dump.
Yeah,
But this bill defunds a lot of the federal Medicaid money, and so the states are not going to be able to pay for Medicaid at the level they used to, which means a lot of rural healthcare places that rely more heavily on Medicaid dollars, because people who live more rural are likely to have lower incomes, are likely going to get shut down or consolidated, which is a fancy word for shutdown. Another big provision that this bill does is it majorly ups the funding of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, also lovingly known as ICE. ICE is, if you haven't heard of it, I'm kind of jealous. ICE is our newest terrorist organization. It is akin to me to the Gestapo and the SS of the 1940s and 30s Germany. They are out here just rounding up whoever without due process and throwing them in literal cages with alligators. And don't
Okay,
worry.
they're not literal cages with alligators. They're literal cages in the Everglades in a concentration camp that they're calling Alligator Alcatraz, where advisors to the Trump administration are openly hoping that alligators will eat them.
Oh, thank God. That's so much better.
Yeah, I thought I should have to clarify that.
I really appreciate you jumping in there. It was really key. Wow, we live in hell.
But yeah,
so
but no.
couple...
I know. I just want to say, I heard the person in the audience say, "Well, they're not. They're literally cages with alligators." And you're right.
So,
Congratulations.
You're right. It's literally cages, and then there maybe are going to be alligators. Just maybe. So it's bad. It's bad out here. Those are just two of the things about the bill.
Yeah.
The bill also raises a debt ceiling, which I don't really care about.
Who cares?
Because debt's not real. I'll read David Graeber and go sit under a tree and think about it. But the right has talked to every time they say anything, it seems like is how are we going to pay for that? And the answer all along was just raise the debt ceiling again, I guess. So those are my three headlines about the BBB.
That's one of those things that they've been openly lying about. Like there's a the nonpartisan congressional budget review or whatever projected that this bill would increase the national debt by what, 3 trillion, 4 trillion or something over the next 5 years. And that actually made a lot of the Republicans angry. They don't like that. They're fiscal conservatives, you see. But for one, like, they just lie about it. Like, Mike Johnson's like, this will lower the national debt. It won't, and he knows that. And then the rest of them who got big mad about the debt, we should stop saying big mad. That can't be our thing.
What do we call it? Very mad? That's so much more boring.
Yeah, the rest who were like at least posturing as being anti this bill because of the increases in government spending and what it would do to the budget. They immediately backed down and changed their minds. Like, the
Freedom
Caucus,
hours, days.
The Freedom Caucus did a big thing where they're like, we're going to fight this, my last weeks. And then they literally buckled like that night. And then there are other holdouts who like just went and spent a couple hours with Donald Trump. And Kat, did you see that video of that congressman?
Which I guess not.
God, I need to go look up his name and be a professional.
Was it?
But the one
were they like?
He posted on his own Twitter a video of himself, saying like, "Well, just had a 2-hour-long conversation with the president, and it was really cool. It was really cool to see him. He said he liked seeing me on TV. That was really cool. And he signed a bunch of stuff for me. Like, these guys
signed a bunch of what?
Oh, you haven't heard about like the merch?
Oh my God, he signed the merch. Oh my God,
you haven't heard that part?
I know about the merch generally.
They wouldn't have had the votes from the Republicans in the House.
Of course.
Like, they only won by 2 votes.
Yeah. Right.
And there were, 6 or 7 who had signaled they were going to vote no. They go talk to Donald Trump. Trump gives them a bunch of signed stuff. And that's all they needed.
Oh my God. Well, I have to think that it has to be more than the signed stuff. Well, let me back up just a little bit and then jump back into this.
Please, yeah.
As we said, now at this point is where we stop focusing on what's in the bill, because there will going to be plenty of analyses of that over the next few years. But we want to talk a bit about why this happened and why this was able to happen. And apparently it's because Donald Trump can just sign his merch enough. But I think it has to be more than that. Like, obviously the merch is happening, but like, what else is happening in that room? My thought, it has to be some kind of like blackmail, because he can't he's not likable. Like, I'm
I
not going to
think
go into a room with him and be like, oh, I just want to do whatever he says.
I think you are overestimating these Congress people.
Shit.
Like, there's a lot of these like MAGA Congress people now who came to Congress after the rise of Donald Trump's whole MAGA
You're right.
thing. Like, these are members of the Trump cult.
Hmm.
And I think for a significant number of them, meeting the president, having the president know who they are, say, hey, I see you on TV, I like you, and then giving them signed shirts and hats, I think that literally is enough for them. Like,
Damn.
these are stands, like you have to
Hmm.
imagine what kind of influence Taylor Swift could have over a Swiftie or something with 2 hours in a room,
Wow.
right? I
That's
don't
such a
think
good point.
I don't think there's blackmail necessary. And
Yeah.
they say stuff like, oh, he promised he'd fix some stuff we don't like with executive orders down the line or whatever. But like, I really think, at least for a few of these flips, like that guy whose name I should look up, but I'm not a professional, so I won't.
We'll
I
look it up
think,
when we can afford to have someone look things up for us.
yeah, I think that it's just fan culture.
Wow. So I'm hearing from you is that Donald Trump is basically Taylor Swift.
I think Donald Trump is in many ways bigger than Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah, he definitely is.
But like I know for us, we don't get it. Like, Donald Trump is obviously repulsive, and we don't understand this kind of charm that people find in him.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can deny that he does appeal to a large amount of people.
I think you're right. I mean, he had to get this far.
Yeah,
And I think there is a charm to I don't find it charming. I'm thinking kind of on a meta level of charm
for
of
sure.
like there is charm to his perceived candor. And I say perceived candor because he just says whatever.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think he
And if
even
you're
knows
listening to
what the
this, you
truth
know that.
is. Yeah, and if you don't, I am sorry to break it to you, but he just says whatever. But it seems like he's being authentic and genuine. It reminds me a lot actually of Joe Rogan and a lot of the appeal. It's like Joe Rogan's wrong about a lot of stuff, but he just says stuff and he says it in a confident way that makes it sound like he's just being honest. And that is
Yeah.
appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it gets to what we were saying at the very top. Like, Joe Rogan is dumb and horrendously underinformed, but he doesn't do much in the way of active lying. He says what he believes. It's just that what he believes is stupid and changes based on whoever his last guess was.
Hmm.
But, and I think Donald Trump is a version of that where, like, especially now, he's old and his brain is degenerating. And I think he's got the, like, whatever it is, the narcissist superpower of, like,
Yeah.
for him, I think even when he's lying and even if he knows he's lying, he still is able to believe what he's saying because, like, he doesn't care about truth and what he
Hmm.
believes is more important. Um,
Hmm.
but there's that, like, and I think I think there's also, like, just what Donald Trump represents within American culture, like the role that Donald Trump currently plays in Christian nationalism. He is like a quasi messianic figure for a lot of these people. Like, there's that picture of all of the I think they're Congress people. There's so many pictures because it's happened so many times. These like Christian nationalists like grouped in prayer, all with their hands on Donald Trump. And I mean, this goes back
Yeah.
to, like, I don't know if you saw the documentary Jesus Camp from forever ago about,
I
like,
haven't.
it's a documentary about
Should I?
evangelical summer camp from, like, the Bush years, the George
Wow.
W. Bush years. And they have this part where they're showing all the little kids being led in prayer while, like, holding onto a cardboard cutout of George W. Bush. They're
Wow.
it's such a combination of different kinds of cultic forces, the like basic human psychology that goes into play in fan culture, Christian nationalism, and then combined with like the whole American cult of power and money, where
Mm-hmm.
for some of these Congress people aren't smart, you know, and like they wanted to be in Congress because they worship these hallmarks of power. And
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump is the most powerful person in the world right now.
Yes.
And that's intoxicating to
Mm.
a person who doesn't like have a strong sense of self or morality.
Mm-hmm. And even some people who do have at least a strong sense of morality, they base their morality in external things. It's like, oh, if Jesus says this, then I can do it. If the Bible says this, then I can do it. If Trump says I can do this, then I can do it. Instead
Yeah.
of working within themselves to figure out what they think is right and wrong. And if you've been living a lot of your life like that, that will, if you choose to start developing an external morality, that will send you into a crisis of all crises and it'll take you months and years to reorient
Oh
yourself.
yeah.
So there's not an incentive to do that. It's a lot easier to actually just allow yourself to be swept up and controlled and told what to do. And I think that also plays into just one of the problems of our current government system, which is it is really so deeply reflects a lot of Christian and Abrahamic religions where there is a Messiah or one person that we look up to tell us what to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's that 100%, like everyone looking for their hero. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can't tell already, listeners, this podcast is going to be one where we just bounce around as we think of things.
Oh
So
yeah.
yes, we are still talking about the big beautiful bill, but that reminds me of something I was thinking about last night, Kat, when I came across an Instagram post by the trans comedian Stacey K.
Oh, okay.
Are you familiar with Stacey K?
No.
She's a stand-up. She's funny.
Great. Good
Trans
for her.
woman.
Ah,
And
love it already. I'll
yeah,
look her up.
though a bit of a lib. And I say that with love because
That's
she's trans. I
fine.
wouldn't if she
You can be
weren't.
a lib.
But she posted this thing yesterday that was like, it's a meme. I don't know who made it. Um, and it was about how Sarah McBride got the trans Medicaid stuff taken out and how everyone who was shitting on Sarah McBride owes her an apology. And it was like a form you could fill out where it had like 9 selections that you could mark to like why you were apologizing to Sarah McBride. And it was like, I let other people tell me what to think about you or like whatever. And then the one
Oh.
that specifically pissed me off was like, I'm just jealous that I don't pass as well as you do. Um,
What?
I know. And Stacy posted this. It had at the time I saw it, almost 4,000 likes, and because she's a huge presence on the trans internet. And to me, it it very much it very much like rang of that same exact hero worship. This idea that like
Mm.
politicians are our champions, and like we need to
Mm-hmm.
support them. We need to have their backs, and that we owe them anything at all. Um, and then yeah, like bringing in, you can pull up the actual
I'm
image
trying to look for
probably.
Stacey K
I'm
right now.
recording on my phone, so
Amazing.
yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm not able to find her, but I will look her up later. And but just based on what you have told me, that is I I love that we have a trans person representing us in the sense of identity politics. It's important to have those perspectives there, but we can't rely on her to be the trans voice because she's just one person and her background is unlike most of our backgrounds. She grew up with lots of money, family friends with the Bidens,
Yeah.
has lived in the Delaware, DC little corridor her whole life. And I'm not saying she's bad for any of those things, Well,
She was
regardless,
she had a very high chance of being in Congress,
yeah,
whether she was trans or not. Like this
yeah,
was what her life was pointed towards. And
always. I
so
mean,
like she's a
she
congressperson who happens to be trans is how
exactly,
I think about her.
exactly. And was it really because of Sarah McBride that that provision got pulled?
That was the other thing that
Because
was so annoying.
I
It's
doubt that.
misinformation.
Yeah, Sarah, if you listen to this and you're like, no, it was solely because of me, please correct us. But I have a hard time believing that the very Congress that prevented Sarah from using a fucking women's bathroom is going to say, oh, but it's fine for us as a country to give medical care to trans
So,
people.
like, here's the story, which I think is actually misinformation that's being spread around, but it is
Mm,
rooted in a bit of truth. So,
okay.
the nugget of truth, as reported by a couple trans journalists and then confirmed by Erin from her own sources, Erin in the morning,
Mm,
um, is that like the actual information was sources in DC say that Sarah McBride was working tirelessly over the past week to talk to Democrats about how important it was not to have this in the bill.
okay, that's
That I
great.
believe. I mean, the
That's
big beautiful
awesome.
bill's been around for a lot longer than a week, and it's crazy that
Yeah.
she's only been working tirelessly for the past week, but she had Ezra Kleins to talk to. But like that can be true. And that's still not why it's not in the final bill, because the only
No.
reason the Senate took it out was because the Senate parliamentarian said it would violate the Byrd rule.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
like it's not a
And if you
that's
don't
not
know
a
what the bird rule is, that's
yeah.
just like a very minute procedural parliamentary rule. It's not even. I wish the bird rule was like, you just can't be too transphobic, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's like basically by chance
Yeah,
that
yeah,
this
it's
got thrown out, which is
yeah.
great. But
And
that's not because of Sarah.
no, and the only reason that it was able to like get thrown out and not forced back in was because of the July 4th deadline. Like the Senate parliamentarian doesn't have that much power. But
No. Honestly, thank you. This is very tongue in cheek, but thank you, Donald Trump, for setting your big mad July 4th deadline.
yeah,
Or else maybe this could be even worse.
yeah.
I don't know.
But
It's
yeah,
hard to
that's
say.
it. So like I'm not a Sarah McBride fan. I don't like any politicians because I am, mostly an anarchist. But I I do think it's important for us to be accurate about like what happened here and not
Yeah.
give Sarah McBride imagined credit because of the narrative we conjure in our minds based on the information that like she was going around talking to people. Of course she was. She's a
Yeah, that's her
congresswoman. That's
job.
her fucking job. It's a congresswoman, and this is going to be the biggest bill passed possibly in her career.
Yeah, and we're saying congratulations, you did your job.
And we
Um,
don't know that she
s-
had any influence at all on it being taken out.
mm-mm,
That's not what's being reported. Sarah McBride,
mm-mm.
correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, please
We'd
do.
love for you to be like communicating with the general public. Take a note out of like AOC's playbook. But
All
anyway.
I'm doing is giving a stare, and that's my only comment.
Yes, because Kat, people on this podcast don't know, but you personally did work with Sarah McBride at the HRC.
We did. I worked at the Human Rights Campaign. Okay, I'm coming out. I worked there for almost 2 years. I know lots of wonderful people who worked there, and one or two who still work there. And Sarah and I were coworkers. We didn't do a lot of stuff together. We were like on a group call together periodically, and we got dinner once, which was cute, and like a group dinner. Um, I I have nothing further to add. We're
Yeah,
acquaintances.
just for
We
context.
text occasionally. Well, she hasn't replied to my last few texts, so I don't know. We're really,
She's too busy.
really
She's
are. But I'm not commenting here on Sarah McBride, the individual who is
no,
is a lovely, lovely individual. But here is the wider political figure that she has signed up to be by virtue of being in Congress. Um,
exactly.
and if you are in a public facing situation, you're gonna get criticized by people, including me. Sorry, I'm gonna get criticized because I'm putting myself out there publicly. So
Yeah,
that's that on philosophy of public criticism.
it will have a longer discussion about the Sarah McBride Ezra Klein interview later
Yeah.
when we both finally have time to get around to recording it.
We've
Catalina's
tried.
very busy, and
And
I don't know. I'm an improviser, but it's
well, and I will say that we did try initially when this podcast was incepted to do an episode about that, and it was like 2 hours, and we only got like one quarter of the way through the interview. So
yeah, this is too much to say. So we're
well,
gonna have to approach that a bit more methodically.
yeah.
But I just wanted to bring that up because like this the, the cult of politicians, like the culture of hero worship within American politics is not uniquely a right-wing thing at all. You
Exactly.
saw this with Obama,
Barack Obama.
you know? Yeah.
Jinx.
Uh,
Even Bill Clinton, people loved that guy.
yeah.
Not as much as Obama, but
So like if you're trying to understand like wow, like just meeting Trump could change someone's mind or like they really love him that much. Think about what a person who was like a huge Obama stan would have done in,
that's such a good
2000,
point.
2009.
Yeah. If I was against something and then went into Bernie Sanders' office
Yeah.
and he was like, listen, you got to do this. I'll sign your book. I can't say what I would do for sure. I would like to think that I would still resist it if I had like a morally sound ground to stand on and I wasn't just being an asshole. But it's impossible for me to know.
Yeah.
Uh, what I
We're
do
all
know is that Chaperone would tell me to do anything she goddamn wanted, and I would do it in a heartbeat. So,
oh. Yeah, and I if Chappell Roan walked up to me and told me to do something, I'm gonna be honest, my response would have to be, "Who are you?" Unless she was wearing like a name tag.
that's acceptable. Or this is revealing the two different kinds of trans women that we are, whatever
Yes,
those are.
it's true.
But
I've never
that's
been.
okay.
I've never been a pop culture stan. Like the ideas of
Oh,
standing a human being has always felt foreign to me. My
mm.
fandom is reserved for epic fantasy series.
And David Graeber.
You know what? That's true. I do stand David Graeber.
If David Graeber told you to jump in a lake, or no, if David Graeber told you to vote for the big beautiful bill, would you?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. There's a huge part of me that would be like, I don't get it, but I do think David Graeber like gets this shit more than I do. He might have a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this goes to the point of like it's easy for me and for us to criticize like this idolatry and hero worship, but I don't know a person who's immune from it to some degree.
Yeah.
And how do we, I mean, I guess the solution is we have to do our best to discern like why we're making the choices that we're making and not trying to make crucial country altering decisions based on hero worship. But
Yeah. I think
I
that's
don't know what the
also
but is.
I think that's also what happens in DC though. And um
Mhm.
Robert Evans is the host of the podcast Behind the Bastards, and he did a great series like right after Trump was elected, all about the Versailles, all about like
Oh.
the court of the Sun King at Versailles and like what
Oh, like
function
in
that
France?
played in France, like in the lead up to the
Nice.
revolution. And
Nice.
specifically like the way that because previously all the aristocrats kind of lived in their own places and their own lands that they governed, and then like every now and again would meet up in Paris or something. But Louis XIV like
Oh.
basically forced them all to live at Versailles. And
Oh.
because they were all locked in this like big place together, it becomes a cult. Like that is the reality. You forget
Mm.
about the real world. Or I'm on vacation with my family right now, and my little brother's girlfriend just had Love Island on. And
Oh.
you watch a reality show like that, and like what happens to people when they're sequestered in this way and like removed from the context of other humans or the broader world and like told this is what matters, that becomes what matters. Like we're not smart. We're very smart, but in many ways we're not.
Yeah.
And when you consolidate all these Congress people and senators in Washington D.C. in like this modern Versailles or at
Mm-hmm.
Mar-a-Lago, it's it's high school. Like the stuff, and I mean that not in the like
Yeah.
there's bullies or whatever, but like when you're in high school, that's what you think is the most important shit in the world because it's what you
Mm.
see every day.
Isn't this like the whole conceit of Lord of the Flies too?
Yeah.
Um, of even well, Yellow Jackets tried, but it's kind of going in some interesting directions. We're not gonna go there.
We're not talking
But
Yellow Jackets on this pod.
Andy, I liked the first season.
First season was fun.
That's all
I
I'll
wish it
say
had
about
just
Yellow
been the
Jackets.
girls.
I wish it had. The adults are fine, but they made some interesting choices toward the
We're
end.
not
I mean, the
talking about
dog
Yellow
thing.
Jackets.
sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. We'll talk about Lord of the Flies, which, like, personally, do I love it? That book, but it makes some good points about you get stuck in this microcosm and things that seem to matter within your microcosm don't actually matter in the bigger scheme of things. And these little kids in Lord of the Flies are all killing each other. And then the adults, quote unquote, come in and they're like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah.
But the reality, though, and I'd love to see like a Lord of the Flies version done with like adults maybe or something, is that they're snapped out of it because they're adults. But the reality is that it is adults who are demonstrating this behavior
Yeah.
now. And there's no further adults to fly in and give everyone a reality check. There is no reality check.
This isn't a human, this isn't a kid thing. This is a human thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is also something that's specifically part of that Christian culture of like being taught to accept authority. It's what's it, I mean,
Yes.
it's capitalism. It is the nature of like being taught and groomed our whole lives to identify the place we fit into the hierarchy and then accept it. Like, but anyway, it's
No, it's true.
Stanford prison experiment. It's all the
Oh,
same shit. It's you get a bunch of people, you
yeah.
get 200 whatever people in Washington D.C. and you tell them you're no longer an independent human moral agent. What you are now is a Republican, right?
hmm I mean, this is like team sports in a
Mhm.
way, too. It's like you got to fight for your team no matter what, because that's your team. Why is that your team? Because it is.
On that note, I was reading a bunch of news articles where they were like, as much as I could, interviews with these Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who it was, Marjorie Taylor Greene, someone like that. You know who I mean. It doesn't matter.
Do I?
She was like,
You don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene matters?
no, but whoever this congresswoman was said,
Okay.
you know,
Neither
it's
do I.
like it's like anytime a football team gets restless, and they forget, there's like one person calling the plays. We got restless, and then we all had to be reminded that Donald Trump is our quarterback, and it doesn't matter if you're, an all-state wide receiver, an all-star running back. Like your quarterback calls the plays, and when he makes the call, you say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's not the exact quote, but listeners, that's
Close
fucking
enough.
close enough. And it's the same shit. It's all the same shit.
It's the same
It,
shit.
these, it's really tempting to see these Republicans making these decisions and the people who support them as doing so with like a full awareness of the evil that these choices carry. Because we know, we see it, we can project it. And they aren't. And that's part of what's like even more insidious and evil about it to me is that's not even why they're doing it.
No.
They're doing it for much stupider, more basic human psychology reasons
Yeah.
of just falling into line with the cult that they're in. Not because any of
Mm-hmm.
them have a strong ideological commitment to any of this shit.
Mm-hmm. And I would love if people in our government, and there are people here and there, like there's some city councilors in my town I really respect, which is like maybe much more small potatoes. It's big potatoes, but small potatoes compared to Congress, who I see who struggle every day to make decisions that seem moral and just based on the way that they assess the world. But the reality is the majority of political decision makers in our society are not doing that. Just
Yeah.
they're not. And it's sad. Uh, and then the question is, how do we create a government where people are doing that? And I don't know.
I think the answer is we can't let them live in this Versailles.
Mm-hmm.
We have created the worst possible situation where our politicians are not part of the world. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as much as Sarah McBride likes to talk about how, being a politician, I'm forced to get to know the general public. They're not. They live in this
It's
city
kind of the
state.
opposite.
They live in this city state of lobbyists and lawyers and think tanks. And they are not, they have no connection to the
Mm-mm.
300 million people that they're governing.
Mm-mm.
You know? It's,
Absolutely not.
that would be step
Well,
one. There's no reason this shit can't all be done online. Maybe if you're a congressperson or a senator, you should have to fucking live in your district.
yeah. Well, in theory, you're supposed to, but who's checking on who's enforcing that? Because I personally have never heard of anyone getting usurped from any office because they moved. Uh, Please correct me if I'm wrong. But the other thing is that the fact that this is somewhat tangential, but the fact that our representative political system, the downside of that is that it fully ignores that people move all the time. Like humans are partially nomadic at our core.
Yeah.
And so we move around. And so, how do we balance? It's okay for you to move around a bit, but you need to at least roughly represent the district that you're representing, and not just live in DC. And in theory, actually, members of Congress, I think they're actually legally required to have two residences, one in DC and one in their home. Could you really expect me to believe that the representative from rural Idaho that I'm sure exists is spending quality time in rural Idaho while they are also in DC?
Yeah.
Like, once a week traveling back and forth. That's nuts. And then there's all that plane time. They also need time to themselves because they're human. Like, our system doesn't make sense.
Yeah. They should be spending no time in DC, in my opinion.
Yeah,
This is a position that, so, all right, full
I like that.
disclosure. Kat used to work at the HRC. My
We already
grandfather,
disclosed that.
my grandfather very briefly used to be the head of the Republican Party of Texas.
Whoa!
Yeah,
Lore drop!
Yeah, this was a long time ago. This was right after he got back from Vietnam. He was like 27 or 28, and he was brought in and then kicked out a year later when the religious right took over the party because he wasn't Christian.
Wow. Imagine being in your 20s and being allowed to have any political power
Crazy,
in
right?
2025.
But so he's like one of his big things he's been saying my whole life that I actually believe. He was like, a lot of the biggest problems of their country started when they capped the size of Congress. Because
Really?
initially, Congress people were like, you're supposed to add people to the House of Representatives
Right.
as the
It was
population
like one
grew.
per 100,000 or something
I
like
think it was
that.
lower, but I think it was like 25,000. But anyway,
Yeah.
um,
It was, yes.
was it 25K?
Oh, no, I'm saying yes as in continue.
It was a low number.
It was a low
significantly
enough number.
lower than now. And
Exactly.
so if it is 100,000 and there's 300 million people in America, almost 400 million, then that would mean that you should have 4,000 people in Congress almost at this point.
Yeah.
And it's a lot harder for the interests of capital and foreign governments through lobbying to buy out 4,000 Congress people than 400. It also,
Ooh,
if you have to
that.
live in your district and there's only 50 to 100,000 people voting in your election instead of the, what, how many people does a congressperson represent now? Like over 1 million,
A lot.
right?
Yeah,
And
over
in some states.
slightly under 1 million. Yeah, it depends on the state. Because
Yeah.
every congressperson represents a different number of people.
Yeah. That's too many people. That congressperson can't be expected to know anyone. And
Yep.
you, as a voter, have no reasonable expectation of ever knowing your congressperson or meeting them or even having them answer
Absolutely
the
not.
fucking phone, you
No.
know?
I recently had the opportunity to sit down with an LGBTQ coalition of folks in my town of Las Cruces to sit down with our congressperson. And it was an hour, and it was curated by his office. But I will give credit to his office people because they were very communicative with me because they know that I know people in the area and were open to me suggesting other people. They were good about the group of people that they gathered. I was satisfied. Um, but we all had this one like hour long sit down for us to just all word vomit to him all of the worst things happening all at once. And then that was it. That was like our opportunity to connect. And at the same time, he has to do that with not only Las Cruces, which is the second biggest city in the state already. It's not big, but it's still the second biggest in the state. And do that with coalitions of people across a broad swath of southern and eastern New Mexico because of how a large, like the physical land area of his district. It's one of the largest districts by land area, which means there's a wide swath of different types of people that he represents. How can he possibly represent all those people at once and average together their view?
Yeah.
That just muddles it into basically nothingness. And as a result, he has to be very moderate. I know in the past he was identified and practiced a lot of like much more leftism, and he's had to really tone it down because then he won't get reelected in probably his and his office's opinion. And maybe he's right. I don't know. Not right for doing that necessarily, but right that maybe he wouldn't get reelected.
Yeah.
But
I
sure,
mean,
boy, would I love 2 years of extreme leftism more than infinite moderation.
that's the other thing. Like, what's the point of you getting reelected if you're not going to be fighting for the differences that you care about?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's the general problem with
Yeah.
anyone who wants to be in Congress or wants
Yeah.
to be president.
Well, and it affects people's jobs. Like you have a whole staff with job security to worry about. You have your own job security to worry about. No job you're going to get after Congress is probably going to pay as much as Congress unless you are like a lobbyist or work for a big giant corporation, which not everyone in Congress wants to do after Congress. I mean, not at least initially when you join Congress. Who knows now?
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of incentive for turnover in Congress. There's not incentive for young people to be in Congress. There is not incentive for people with bold new ideas to be in Congress. I think it's a minor, if not major, miracle that we got someone with fresh and interesting ideas as the mayor of New York City.
Well, he's not the mayor yet.
The presumptive mayor of New York City.
The Democratic candidate for mayor of New York City. Unless
If
he gets
doesn't win, I
denaturalized and
swear,
deported.
which really might happen.
Genuinely, yeah. Oh, they're not joking.
No, they're like they're actively trying to deport him, and they probably could. I mean, ICE could probably just yank him and put him in Alligator Alcatraz. And what could any of us do about it? Literally nothing.
Every day, something like that happens. Where I'll bring up to whatever. My parents are generally, they've moved pretty far left. They're pretty woke. But
Hell yeah.
parents are people of that ilk where it's like kind of Dems who've opened their minds a little bit to thinking more
Yeah.
stuff. And I'll say
I
something
love when
like,
people try to think.
yeah, it's great.
It's
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah, my parents are very thoughtful, which I appreciate. I'm very lucky.
Oh.
But every now and again, I'll say something like, yeah, I mean, unless they like deport Zohran Mamdani. And they'll be like, well, that won't happen.
You said Donald Trump wouldn't happen again. You said a lot of things wouldn't happen.
I'm just using my parents as an example.
Of course.
What I really mean are the moderate Democrat, moderate liberal. Stop saying that stuff's not going to happen because it keeps happening.
Everything's on the table right now. We're living through another revolution, essentially. Like it's the beginnings of one. And if I'm wrong, honestly, I might be a little bit sad because the way stuff has been working the last several decades, it's not working.
Yeah.
And we need change desperately. We need to change our systems on a mega substantial level. We now have one of the oldest constitutions out of any country in the world. So who says it's not time for a little update?
And Thomas
Well,
Jefferson thought there should be a
revision.
constitutional convention, what, every like 20 years or something?
Yeah, I don't even like that guy.
No.
And you know, broken clocks right twice a day. And circling back to age too, most of the people at that convention, I mean, there was an age range. Most of them were young little fuckers. Like and we treat them like they're the Bible and the mythology, like talking again about idolatry. And we're like, well, what did the founders think? And it's like, who cares? They had slaves. I don't care what the founders thought. I care what's best for us right now.
They also didn't have supernatural access to the best way to organize a modern country.
Yeah. The only thing they probably had on us was not having as much lead poisoning.
They were literally making shit up based on like, what ideas can we steal from the Iroquois nation and then modify to make sure that like rich white slaveholders don't ever lose power?
Literally. How can we not have a king that's in England, but still kind of have our own king, but we can elect the king though, but he's still basically a king.
And when I say we can elect the king, I mean like we can elect the king.
Yeah, like
not you.
Like, to be very clear, only if you own land and are white and have a penis, then you can elect the guy who's also going to be white and have a penis.
Yeah, which makes sense. You know, I could see why they thought that, given that they were the people who would be benefiting from that consolidation of power and authority.
Exactly. I think it's a major miracle that they even decided that they were going to let women vote, white women vote. And then white people turned around and said, we'll let people of color vote because
not the founding
power
fathers,
left to hold on to
I know
power.
you know this, but to clarify, sorry, Katalina has jumped forward, 150 years in history?
I really have. I'm just really generalizing all white people in power at this moment now.
Yeah.
Throughout all of American history, as if it's 1 nanosecond. But I think, once again, we have to work to envision our own future. We can't rely on 300-year-old dead guys with teeth that they extracted from their slaves to tell us what to do. And we can't expect Daddy Trump to tell us what to do. We can't expect Zaddy Obama to tell us what to do. We have to decide what we're going to do.
Yeah. It's crazy. But I listened to an old woman read the Declaration of Independence out loud on July 4th because that was her family's tradition, and I happened to be down in like the common area when they were doing this.
That's more than I celebrated. That's
so I did listen because I was there. And
why not?
I'm gonna be honest. Declaration of Independence, it kind of slaps. He's not wrong.
No, it's true. It's like we the people. I'm like, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like, but the insight that I appreciated about it, that I guess I'd never actually read the Declaration of Independence before beyond like the fucking preamble. You know, the call out was humans will suffer evils for as long as they're sufferable.
Ooh.
And I was like, damn, he's right. You know?
Ooh.
And like, that's what people are doing right now. People are suffering fucking evils knowingly. Like, myself included.
I personally am not suffering a single evil. I'm doing great and everything's fine.
Suffering is in like putting up with, accepting.
Yeah.
You know, like I think part of the problem that people have with imagining an alternative to the American empire and everything the Trump administration is doing is just sort of the logical conclusion of American empire. Like,
it is.
And the founding fathers knew that. That's why everything about the Constitution was like, yeah, something like this is gonna happen. So here's a bunch of rules to try to make like stop that from happening as best as we can. But like that's the natural trajectory.
Yeah.
And
it's still happening.
But like it's you can't, I think it's really hard to reimagine that if you're
Mm-hmm.
not also willing to reimagine capitalism in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. I,
And
even
how
as
are we
someone,
gonna?
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about it. Like, as much as I love shitting on these Republicans with their like, oh, you're just in your Versailles of DC and you wake up sheeple, or
Mm-hmm.
their slave owning founding fathers,
Mm-hmm.
I'm recording this podcast from my parents' vacation condo at a ski resort in Colorado,
Damn.
where it's lovely. It's really nice. And this is like the fact that this entire condo complex exists is part of the evil. And
Mm.
like the ways that my parents were able to consolidate money to buy it, less evil than many ways because my dad is a neonatologist, which means he saves newborn babies for a living.
Oh.
But still, like the whole fact that that is a way of it getting rich in our system is a consequence of evil.
Mm.
Uh, the fact that the land that this mountain resort is on was stolen from the Ute people.
Mm-hmm.
In recorded history, we just went to the town's little museum and there was the most fucked up little ad where it was like a guy in like a union uniform with a little like gun with a bayonet chasing a Ute person, like a caricature of an indigenous
Wow.
American. And
In
it
the
was like,
museum.
well, it was like it was, part of the shameful history of the town, but it
Okay.
was like a newspaper ad from this time period. And it was like, we got to get all them Utes out of here. And when we're
Damn.
done, come sample the fine groceries down at. It was an ad for a fucking store.
Wow. Wow.
So everything
Wow.
about our system, everything about
Mm-hmm.
our culture is inextricably based on and interwoven with the kind of fundamental unequal evils that are what drive America to be what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard for us. It's really hard for me to like, well, what does that look like to get rid of it? Just like Thomas Jefferson and the fucking founding fathers were slave owners.
Yeah.
And they also were like, yeah, no, Thomas Jefferson was like, yeah, I mean, slavery is evil. Like, definitely, it's bad. I'm not going to get rid of it.
Yeah, but you first.
Like you first, like I've already done so much. I started the whole country. I know it's evil, but can't I just retire to Monticello and extract teeth and you know
And
impregnate a child?
against their will. Uh, I think I think something that like building on this and building like toward the solutions oriented way I tend to go because I'm wired to be disgustingly optimistic is I there's no thing that each one of us can do. Maybe this is more for the potential listeners than for us.
But
To make
also for
them,
me,
but also for you. There's no one thing that each of us could do because then that circles back to the saviorism and the idolatry. Because there's no one person that's going to save us. It's going to take. It doesn't even take one person with a big idea. It takes thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of us with little ideas that we can all put together in order to create a new reality. So no one of us is going to know what the future is going to look like, but we all know what one little piece of it's going to look like.
yeah,
I
I
hope.
mean, I think that's very true and necessary to remember because it is the other side of our cultic hero worship in our political culture and our culture more broadly is the way that it excuses you. If I cannot be the hero, I cannot save the
Hmm.
world, then there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
And that's
When
not true.
when I grew up,
When I
when
grow
I
up,
grow up, I want to be in a different society. But when I grew up previously to now, we're always all growing. I knew that I wanted to make some kind of change in the world and in society because I saw that things were messed up. Wow, I'm such a visionary. I saw that things were messed up and I wanted to change them. But I thought the only way I can do that is by going to like the best college that I can, getting the best job that I can do, like doing the biggest, bestest thing. And this is part of like a narrative of overachieving that was fed to like later millennials, early Gen Z, which is another whole podcast topic we could do. But I ate that shit up. I gobbled it right up because the world felt so big and painful, and I felt like that was the only thing I could do. But the time that I have felt most solace is actually when I came back into my home, my hometown, which is a place that I know, and thought and realized, no, I can just make the little changes that I can here. And I've never felt more powerful. Um,
Yeah.
and because I am making my small part.
Yeah. I think this is the kind of thing that to some people who might listen to this podcast, who might have backgrounds more similar to ours, or at least to mine. I don't know a ton about your like pre-law school background, but if you, like me, grew up comfortably upper middle class with parents who can afford a vacation home or to send you to a good school, or where you never actively had to worry about where food or rent was coming from, um, and you're, gifted and talented, you generally fit in, you could, like, if you could live the life that America laid out before you as what a life looked like, then you might be processing through these things at the same time that I am, that we are. And like, I'm just here talking about this shit. But for as long as there has been America, and much longer, for as long as there have been humans, there have been people out there actively doing shit to help people, you know? And there's going to be another kind of person who might listen to this podcast who's going to be like, oh, I see. Y'all are so far behind. This is obvious. Like,
Yeah.
takes thousands of people with little ideas, of course. Like, you know, eh, there's
Mm-hmm.
a reason that people targeted the FBI targets the Black Panthers, because they're out there doing like free breakfast for kids and
Mm-hmm.
little shit to help their community. There are, no matter where you live, there are people out there actively engaged in mutual aid, helping your
Mm-hmm.
neighbors, helping the homeless people on your streets, helping clean the park on their Saturday morning just because they want the park to be clean for everyone. Like, it, if you, like me, have been still trapped in the American culture you're trying to rebel against, and have been privileged and comfortable enough to rebel in the battlefield of the mind, reading books, podcasts, academia,
I
and
mean,
arguing with your
Jordan
parents and
Sparks.
brother.
Jordan Sparks says love is a battlefield, so I would buy that. The mind is also the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is like stuff to that, but it's also like the most inspiring people that I've met in my adult life trying to relearn all this stuff didn't go to the best colleges, or some of them might have, but that doesn't fucking matter. A lot of them didn't go to college at all.
Yeah,
A
it
lot of
doesn't
them
fucking matter.
were just the people out there every fucking day doing the work to help other
Mm-hmm.
people because they cared about other people. And a lot of them grew up depending on the help of other people and understanding at a level I just don't, because of the privilege I was raised with, like how important it is and what it can look like. And that you don't have to fucking save the world for it to be worth doing anything that isn't just staying on the track that capitalism has built for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. I Since we're coming up on our time, I guess I'll give a concluding thought responding to that, and it's that
Please.
like the topic of today was roughly the big beautiful bill and Congress and the failings of Congress, but it relates because we think these people are supposed to represent us and make choices for us, and they didn't do that. And the reality is that Congress has never been very good at representing the will of the American people. It's actually pretty bad at it, but the way we can assert our will, our free will, allegedly, I guess that's up for debate these days, unfortunately. I'll look into that more later. But the way we can assert our will and the way we can make changes and find control in this utterly fucked up country is by doing the little things in our own communities that we live in. Meet your neighbors, find out how you can help your neighbors, even if not your physical neighbors, people who you work nearby. And because if you just spend all day doom scrolling, it's not going to help. And if you're sitting to this podcast, listening and doom scrolling, I get it. I've been there and I will continue to be there. But I challenge you to, and if you're already doing this is awesome, and keep doing it. But I challenge you to go find someone outside of your house that you can do a little bit of something for, because I guarantee you that you can do something that others can't, that they need help with.
There are people in your town doing the work that you want to do and don't know how to yet.
Mm-hmm.
They need your help, and they'll teach you what to do.
Mm-hmm. And if you live in a small enough town that is truly does not have the thing that you want to do, congratulations. You're now in charge of doing it.
Yeah. And it's better
you
for
get
you
a little
to
bit of
try.
Idolatry, just a little bit. You can be in charge of that thing.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Hey,
yeah.
Try it.
And it doesn't matter your background. You can have a second home in Colorado. You can live paycheck to paycheck in New Mexico. You can be a secret other third thing. I think those are the only two things you can be, but maybe there's a third thing.
Well, you can do the combination of the two, which is what I do, where you live paycheck to paycheck and you sort of experience what it's like to feel broke, except that you fundamentally know when push comes to shove, your parents will always be able to help you pay rent. So you never actively access the real stress that people really living paycheck to paycheck do, but you feel like you do. And then you can sometimes run the risk of forgetting that and tricking yourself into thinking that you understand something that you don't.
I want a taste of that. That doesn't sound so bad.
It's not bad. I'm not complaining about it. Look, it's good. For me, it's good.
Wow. Man, I hope I never get fired. But no matter your background, there's something that you can do. Yeah. And to do it.
Do we want to start a podcastly tradition of giving one concrete piece of advice?
I like that. Sometimes the advice is going to be go cry. Yeah. But that's good advice sometimes too.
Here's what my grandma would do, and that my mom has carried on doing in Houston, and that I want to get better about doing more regularly.
Ooh.
If you live in a driving town, and you find yourself frequently driving past unhoused people, coming up to you at intersections or whatever, my grandma would always keep a big box that had pre-made baggies full of like non-perishable goods, little tubes of toothpaste, deodorant, socks, wipes, some granola bars. Take an afternoon, make a bunch of those, keep them in your car, and then you have something helpful to give people. And you don't have to be like, oh, I don't have cash anymore. Do you have Venmo? And then you drive away.
If you're asking an unhoused person if they have Venmo, I have some greater. I mean, sometimes
some people do.
People have Venmo.
Some people
do. It's actually true. There's a lot of people who have Venmo, and there's a lot of housed people who don't have Venmo.
Here's what I'll say. If you actually don't have cash, but you would want to give money to someone, do ask if they have Venmo or Cash App, because I have given people, I've Cash App people money more often than I thought I would.
People have phones, even if they don't have a place to live.
Yeah. Most unhoused
as someone who works with
jobs.
A lot of unhoused people, most of them do. And if oh boy.
Anyway, that's a different episode.
Yes. But for today, take solace in knowing that your government failed you once again, but don't worry, it failed you plenty times before and it'll fail you plenty times more. But you're gonna get through it somehow.
Together.
together. This has been your cast review for today. We'll see you next week. Stay safe and don't consume junk science if you can.
Or do. Who the fuck?
Or do. I don't care anymore.
No, I care. Don't do it. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Cassandra knew they waited for her song. The audience had paid to see a show. And so Cassandra did her best to play along. And Cassandra smiled like she didn't know.